I'm not happy with Iran either.
And the president is especially irritated by CNN and other media outlets who reported on Saturday night that the U.S. attack had not completely destroyed Iran's nuclear program.
I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people.
A national defense analyst says victory over the Iranian regime cannot be won just with air power.
On Monday, things heated up in the Middle East following the daring raid early Sunday by the United States that did extensive damage to 3 Iranian nuclear sites, including the Fordo enrichment facility buried several hundred feet underground. The Israelis followed up hitting Iranian government targets, including the notorious Evin prison in the Iranian capital and the security headquarters of the paramilitary Revolutionary Guards. But the radical regime made good on its promise to strike back, launching missiles toward U.S. military bases in several Arab countries, including Qatar and Iraq, but no casualties were reported. Bob McGinnis is president of McGinnis Strategies, LLC, and author of a dozen books, including his latest, Preparing for World War III. He warns that the Iranians will not surrender.
Are we going to pay a price? Eventually. There's a calm before the storm at this point, as far as I'm concerned. The Iranians are kind of putting together their pieces. Don't believe anything you hear from them, but be very watchful because they will continue the shadow war. There's not going to be capitulation. That's not an Islamic ideology. They don't believe in that. We're infidels as far as they're concerned.
So McGinnis says there must be regime change.
However, in order to accomplish that, you're going to have to put people on the ground. And I don't think anybody in the United States really wants to go in with tens of thousands of U.S. military personnel into another Middle East war. And yet, you cannot win this campaign, this new war, from the air alone. It's just not going to happen.
I'm Chad Groening.
The Supreme Court on Monday granted the Trump administration's request to stay a lower court injunction, blocking them from deporting individuals to third countries without prior notice. A near-term win for the Trump administration as it looks to quickly enforce its immigration crackdown. Constitutional law expert and Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley.
The lower court judge said that, you're sending these people to countries that you've advised Americans to leave because of the violence. But ICE is saying, look, there's a reason why their home countries don't want them. Countries are not clamoring to get more felons, to augment their home population. And that's not our fault. It's your fault. You committed crimes here and you are deportable. And we're not a travel agency. So if your home country doesn't want you, then we're going to find the next best option. With this order, they're allowed to do that.
For American Family News, I'm Steve Key.
The American Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. We also support the church. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. AFA believes that all men and women, whether in private or public, should be free to exercise their faith without hindrance from the government.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Tuesday, June the 24th, 2025. Thank you for listening to AFR. I'm Tim with Wesley Wildmon. Good morning, Wesley.
Good morning.
And good morning, Chris Woodward.
Good morning.
And we're in Tupelo EMS, and in KCKS is our good friend Dr. Ray Pritchard. Hey, how you doing, Ray?
Hey, I'm rocking and rolling here in Kansas. How are you doing, Tim?
So let me ask you this. You've been gone a while, right? A couple of weeks?
Yeah, we were, Marlene and I were in Chicago for a couple of days for a board meeting, and then we spent a week of ministry out on the Pacific Coast at Cannon Beach Conference Center in Cannon Beach, Oregon, where, we're having this heat wave here in the center part of the country,
right?
90 plus and such. Out there, it was like it went down to 50 degrees at night, and then it would it never hit 70 the whole week we were out there on the coast. So
Wow.
yeah, we
Perfect weather.
We had a good time out there.
Absolutely. Perfect weather.
A couple of the pictures I'm looking here, that's the first I've heard of Cannon Beach, Oregon, and it looks really beautiful.
Well, describe it, Ray, for the.
Well, you're right there on the Pacific coast, and it's a conference center that incidentally is 80 years old this year. Right, the year right as World War II was coming to an end. A Portland pastor and his wife went out there by faith and bought some land, and now it's the major Christian conference center in the Pacific Northwest. And Wesley, there's several miles of just beautiful white beach. Haystack Rock is there, which is world famous. And I walked down to the Rock and back about 2 miles round trip every single day we were out there. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, glad. What was your topic? What was your Bible topic?
Oh, way back in the book of Genesis, after Eden, stories of faith, failure, and the dawn of civilization. We started with the story of Cain and Abel and got to Lamech and got to Enoch, who walked with God, and Methuselah. And the last message on Friday night was called The Days of Noah, why God sent the flood. And it's sort of Tim, the whole series in one sentence is, if you want to understand the future, look to the past, because the past is the key to the future. And Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. So if you want to understand the crazy things happening in the world today, Genesis explains it all.
Amen. Amen. Well, we got to go ahead.
I was going to say, Paul says that too in Romans, where he says everything that was written in former days were written for our instructions.
You know, people read Genesis 5, those, the genealogy, and they think it's boring. But it's, Methuselah. I mean, Methuselah lived 969 years. And I said to the people, look, if you're 90 years old, you're not even 10% of the way to where Methuselah was. So it's so much fun going back into the parts of the Bible we don't read very often, but it's full. Let's say it this way: Genesis explains the Bible, and the Bible explains all of life.
Amen. Amen. All right. Well, a lot to talk about today. Dr. Walter Wendler, president of West Texas A&M University, will be with us at the bottom of the hour. He joins us every 2 or 3 months to discuss a interesting topic, and we will do that today with him in just a little while. But what's leading the news, Chris?
Depending on which TV news channel someone follows, you're getting different reports on whether or not we're in a ceasefire again between Israel and Iran. And I say that because while you guys were talking with Ray, I have no idea where they get this information from. I'm just reading the Chiron or message down at the bottom of the screen. BBC just reported Trump says Israel-Iran ceasefire back in effect. That's different from what Fox says. Fox says Trump is going to a NATO meeting to push for a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Meanwhile, CNN and MSNBC are saying that Israel violated the ceasefire by firing one another last night after Trump's big announcement that both of them supposedly had agreed to a ceasefire.
Well, there's no better feeling than to be in a room and realize you're not the only one confused. Okay.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
Yes. So we may or may not be back in a ceasefire, but the big story last night, and I do have some sound to this effect today. Last night, around about a little bit after 5 o'clock Central, it was announced by President Trump on Truth Social in all caps that both Israel and Iran had agreed to a ceasefire after a 12-day war between those two countries, firing rockets at one another, what have you. Everybody knows that Trump used B-2 bombers to go after Iranian nuclear sites on Saturday, and then less than an hour or two after news of the ceasefire, Israel and Iran both traded missiles with one another again. And Trump this morning, as he was departing the White House, expressed his disappointment in both Israel and Iran for firing on one another and violating the ceasefire. Clip 2.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I'd never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it.
All right.
Oh, man.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm rubbing my eyes here.
I know. That's the first I heard that. When was that clip?
Okay.
That was this morning.
Okay.
On live television.
I've used the expression good Trump, bad Trump. For the most part, it's good Trump with his presidency, but sometimes. Well, yesterday when he came out with this 5 o'clock, he announced on his Truth Social, he said, "Congratulations to everybody. The ceasefire has been brokered between I brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and we were all happy. And I hope, but then Iran says we don't know what he's talking about, and Israel is going like we're not commenting.
Yes, sir.
And so, okay, my personal opinion, which is just what it is that President Trump got out too fast on this, and should have waited to make a more formal announcement than just blurting it out on Truth Social. That's what he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I know he wanted to get it out there, and he's excited about the prospects of it being an agreement, a ceasefire, and into hostilities between Israel and Iran. But that's just my opinion. He got out there a little early on it, and it should have waited maybe 24 more hours to get everything in place before he, because they were still firing, right? Iran was firing weapons at our military base in Qatar.
Well, yes, they were. And was the president a little bit premature? Yes. Was he? Look, he's not the first president to lose his temper and use some salty language when discussing what is going on in the Middle East. I suspect that every single president who's tried to solve the problem over there has felt exactly the same way. What should we say? Okay, Chris, what do we want to say here? Is there a ceasefire? Is it tenuous? Is it tentative? What word do you want to use to describe it right now?
Well, oftentimes when things like this happens and it's unclear as to what the word should be, we just say there's news of a reported ceasefire, or there's reportedly a ceasefire. Trump says there's a ceasefire, things like that. We attribute it to somebody else.
Well, look, supposedly Iran, Mr. Trump was angry that Israel unloaded. Yeah, they did. But supposedly Iran fired 2 missiles into northern Israel after the start of the so-called ceasefire. Look, if Iran's going to do that, Israel's going to answer back.
Right.
So one can hope now that the ceasefire will hold.
Yeah, absolutely. And today we'll find out, I guess, in the next 24 hours whether that's going to hold. And of course, yet to be determined, I guess, or yet to be, we don't know. What does this look like? I mean, is Iran going to have to officially surrender? Are they going to have to give up their plans for a nuclear weapon altogether and let independent inspectors come in and monitor what they're doing if they continue to do development, uranium enrichment or whatever they that's about my extent of how you make a nuclear weapon.
Right.
Ray?
Right.
So there's a lot of things yet to be determined. But the first thing would be to stop hostilities. But that's only if Iran has been completely neutralized, I would say, if you're looking at it from Israel's perspective.
Well, okay. I would say it this way. The point Iran better understand is Israel is not playing around. They are not messing around. If Iran thinks that Israel is done, let them launch a few more missiles, and it'll be. Israel's got plenty. Let's put it this way: Israel's got plenty of resources left to attack Iranian bases, missile launching sites, weapons labs. They're not at the end of the targets that they want to hit. Mm-hmm. So if I was Iran, I'd take my hand and I'd move it as far away from any launch buttons, because Israel, they will strike back hard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just need to say this for the record, and then I understand exactly what you're saying earlier, Ray, about presidents can lose their tempers like anybody else and lash out and say things they regret later.
Right.
But President Trump should not be using the F-bomb on international television.
Right.
It's just not appropriate. As angry as he may be at Israel and Iran.
Was that last night?
No, it was this morning.
This morning.
Okay.
This morning he was doing a press conference with the people of the
Is
rope
that
line.
part of the clip we heard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
We aired the family-friendly portion of it.
he said that Israel and Iran didn't know what the blank they were doing.
And CNN just did like 15 minutes straight on that.
Okay. Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, he shouldn't do that. You gotta maintain some decorum, when you're president of the United States. But anyway, we'll see. Next 24 hours will tell the tale.
Yeah.
On whether or not the ceasefire, as it were, is going to be abided by. So. Anyway.
Now, with regards to CNN, which they just did a very lengthy segment on Trump's use of language there and whether or not he should do that kind of thing. Trump also did not hold back his comments. Again, in a PG clip here. Here's what President Trump had to say about CNN and MSNBC based on their coverage of Saturday's bombing from the U.S. Clip 1.
I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s. I think that MSDNC ought to apologize. I think these guys these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are. You're real losers. You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times. But the people that run it ought to be ashamed. MSDNC, a guy named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a disgrace. He's a weak, pathetic disgrace.
So President Trump clearly not a fan of CNN or MSNBC.
Yeah, since a long time ago. Calling them fake news and calling them out in public. Yep.
I think the president was slightly irritated this morning and was just expressing himself. And by the way, Tim, I do want to go on record and say I agree with you. I think it's very wise if the president doesn't use that sort of language in public. There is a kind of decorum that we expect, right?
Yeah.
We expect it whether it's Ronald Reagan or Donald Trump or George W. Bush or any of the Democrats, Bill Clinton or whoever it is. We expect better from our president.
Yeah, you can plain talk without having to use that kind of language, and that's anyway.
I'm going to take us off track here for just a moment.
Okay, go.
The night before last, or the day after the bomb, we bombed Iran. Whatever day that was. Saturday. Okay, so Sunday night, I spent a half hour, an hour on the internet. That's
what Ed calls it.
That their internet, between videos and articles of looking into the B-2 bombing plane. And that is so impressive, just how big, just that type of equipment is just, when you're not in that world every day, you tend to forget just how advanced technology has become and and the fact that they obviously took off from Missouri, never landed, and
flew around the world basically.
Yeah,
flew around the world in these B-2s and refueled 3 times, I think, in the air. Can you imagine that?
Mm. Yes, and so you've seen movies with stuff like this before, but then to know that it's a reality.
Yeah.
Speaking of movies, one of the things people have been talking about since Saturday is how eerily familiar the plot of the latest Top Gun film is. To the Saturday bombing. Matter of fact, I just shared this on our Today's Issues Facebook page. It's a Daily Mail article, one of many news outlets to cover this. But the Daily Mail's headline is, How Tom Cruise's Top Gun Maverick Eerily Foreshadowed Trump's Stealth Bomb Raid on Iran's Nuclear Lab. Taking place decades after the original 1986 film, the second installment features Maverick, Cruise's character, returning to the armed forces to prepare a new class of Navy pilots for a mission far behind enemy lines. The mission is to destroy a massive underground uranium enrichment facility before the unnamed hostile nation can create a nuclear weapon. Iran is not mentioned, but you're kind of sort of led to believe that it is an Iran-like nation based on what we see playing out in the news.
Yep, I saw that movie as well, and I had forgotten about the fact that they dropped a bomb in a vent in the movie.
Yeah.
That is, and that was in 20. It was 2 years ago.
It was like 2020, I think.
Okay, that movie. Okay, so it was further back than I thought. I didn't realize that.
So is President Trump?
He's getting his.
Is he going to call on Tom Cruise?
No, he's
a big, beautiful actor.
Listen, he's just getting his plans from Tom Cruise.
2022.
That's
is
right.
when it came out.
Okay, there you go.
That was what was the name of that movie? Maverick.
Top Gun Maverick. Yeah. It was the second part to the original.
When was the first? Ray, do you remember when the first Top Gun?
The 1980s.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. 80s.
Oh, in the 80s.
80s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard to. And,
They were fighting the Russians in that one. I watched that one over the weekend, the original one.
Yeah.
I felt the need for speed.
That's right.
One other thing I got to say about what President Trump said. He said this morning he was very angry acting with Israel and Iran when he made that profane comment, but I didn't appreciate either him. This sounds like I'm not against President Trump. I'm not, but he says that Israel doesn't know what the blank they're doing. Talking about Israel and Iran. I don't know if he means. I think Israel does know what they're doing.
Some people said we shouldn't get involved because they were clearly capable of going after Iran themselves.
Well, but they didn't have the bunker buster.
That's very true.
U.S. So President Trump had to provide those, and he did, and we commend him for that. And he did the right, in my view, he did the right thing to do that because it helps end the war with Iran and destroy their nuclear capabilities.
And it's just as much self-serving as it is helping Israel.
Yeah, but if you're Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, you just don't know what to say with Trump because his personality is so volatile. He'll call you wonderful today and then calls you a pathetic loser tomorrow. That's just so you really don't know. You appreciate his friendship and he does stand strong with Israel, but you just don't know what he's going to say this afternoon. That you're going to have to. Reporters are going to put a microphone in front of your face and say, "Mr. Prime Minister Netanyahu." Trump said, "You don't know what the blank you're doing." What do you say to that?
Yeah.
Huh? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just don't answer it.
That's what I think. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu's doing. He just told him and his lieutenants just don't comment on those kinds of things. But listen, all this will be forgotten if Monday morning we're sitting here talking and nothing's happened. And we hope and pray that that's the case. No more firing at one another.
I hope if the Lord tarries and we all live to see Monday, I hope we have different stories to talk about at the top of the show because I have feared for several days now people are going to think this is a repeat because we keep talking about this.
Right.
Although it is the biggest story in the world, this is a show called Today's Issues. Well,
President Trump put his credibility on the line yesterday by saying there's a ceasefire. So he's the one that brought it up. So we will see whether that holds, and we hope and pray that it does.
BBC is now back to saying that the ceasefire is back in effect.
Good. All right, so you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Next story.
This relates to it, and it sounds like I'm making it up, but it's not. I found it on the internet, so you can believe it. And I'll share the link on our Facebook page. A Democratic national security aide to Joe Biden and Bill Clinton has come forward to praise Donald Trump's bold decision to bomb Iran and says Kamala Harris lacks the, quote, courage to have done the same. The official is former NSC official Jamie Metzi. He's no Trump fan. calling him out for dangerous and undemocratic actions. But he says the president took a needed step to try to wipe out Iran's nuclear program. Jamie says, quote, I voted for Kamala Harris and have been a vocal critic of many dangerous and undemocratic actions taken by President Trump, but I'm not a blind tribalist and am perfectly comfortable praising President Trump for bold and courageous actions in support of America's core national interests, as he took last night, talking about Saturday night.
Yeah, the Democrats would do well, Ray, to sit their criticism out, so to speak, on this one.
Well, I think that this fella, whose name, what's his name, Chris?
Jamie Metzi.
That ought to be the Democratic position.
Yeah.
We disagree with the president on some issues,
right,
but he made the right decision here. It takes courage, doesn't it, for a Democrat to say anything favorable to President Trump.
A Democrat brought an end to World War II really quick with a decision no one wanted to make.
Right.
Right. But this fella here that's talking here, he was a high level. He was in a high level position for what?
To Joe Biden and Bill Clinton.
Yeah. So he's a lifelong Democrat. Said he voted for Kamala Harris, and she would have been better on a lot of other issues. But he said Democrats, his own party, should commend the president for this bold action to take out Iran's nuclear weapons. Because listen, Ray, Democrat and Republican presidents have acknowledged and been saying for years, Biden and Obama and that Bill Clinton before that Iran was the chief sponsor of international terrorism.
Yep, that's right.
And don't forget, with respect to Israel, they know that Hamas and Hezbollah have been getting their money from Iran.
That's right. Yep.
So imagine if you're, let's say the state of Illinois was attacked, for example, and by Indiana, whose borders in Iowa? I'm just using an example we would all understand.
They came from both sides.
Yeah. Let's just say that rockets were being fired into Illinois from Indiana and Iowa, and Illinois knew that they were getting their money from North Carolina, for example, to provide these rockets in their terrorism activities into their border states. Then I guess that would help you understand how Israel, wants to cut off the head of the snake. Mm-hmm. The head of the snake would be Iran, so that they will not and cannot fund this terrorism, Hamas and Hezbollah, any longer, on their borders. Anyway, that makes sense.
Well, it's exactly right.
Yeah.
That Iran is the chief bad actor in the Middle East.
Right.
And they're funding so many of these other Hamas, Hezbollah, and other groups. And Israel's doing the right thing, trying to cut off the head of the snake. And we wish them all the best.
Israel has taken out so many of the Khomeinis, that's the religious leader in Iran.
Right.
Top lieutenants. I mean, it's just taken out. I mean, they killed them. Mm-hmm. Nuclear scientists. This is what they've been going on the last.
And they could have taken out Khomeini. They say they know where he is. They've chosen not to do that so far.
Right. Exactly. So.
I don't think I got to be sleeping very well if I was.
No, I know. That Mossad, which is the Israeli equivalent of our CIA, is just unparalleled in their activities. We'll be back momentarily.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Then Jesus went with them to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I go yonder and pray." Gethsemane is located in a valley. Perhaps that is symbolic. For life cannot be lived on mountaintops. It is a series of highs and lows. And here at Gethsemane was a low period for our Savior. Gethsemane is located in the Kidron Valley, between the Mount of Olives to the east and the temple area inside the walls of Jerusalem to the west. It was a favorite spot for Jesus, and no doubt he came here often to pray and rest. On the night of his arrest, he had brought with him his disciples. 3 of them, James, John, and Peter, he took on into the garden. He went farther into the garden to pray, asking a simple request of his 3 friends that they watch for him while he prayed. But 3 times he returned to find them sleeping, perhaps because it was late and they were tired, or perhaps because they did not understand the seriousness of the situation. It was in Gethsemane that Jesus agonized in prayer. His will came into conflict with God's will. He could see before him an ugly and painful cross which he wished to avoid. The sight and smell of blood from the slaughter of sheep for the feast of the Passover, flowing in the nearby Kidron Brook, was heavy that night. No doubt the aroma brought to his mind the very likely possibility that his blood would flow in a very short time. Jesus was not in that garden very long until he noticed a small group of Roman soldiers and Jewish temple guards, led by Judas Iscariot, coming toward the garden. Down the steps which passed by the home of Caiaphas the high priest they came, the very same steps Jesus and his disciples had walked down after leaving the upper room. Upon arrival, Judas greeted Jesus with a kiss, the traditional greeting among friends. "Master," cried Judas as he kissed Christ. How many times since then he has endured the same type of hypocrisy? They carried him away from Gethsemane to a fate no person should have to endure. He went willingly because he had decided while praying in the garden that God's will and not his would prevail. Perhaps as they walked away, he looked up to the Golden Gate across the Kidron and remembered the previous Sunday's events when the crowd cried, "Hosanna!" There was no crowd other than the soldiers now, and no hosannas, only silence and darkness. The Garden of Gethsemane is still there in the Kidron Valley today. This place of the wine press has 8 olive trees growing in it. They're snarled and twisted from age. Looking at them, one is reminded of the terrible agony Christ experienced here. It's never an easy matter to do the will of God, and every person who tries will eventually come to Gethsemane. Some continue in his way from Gethsemane. Others turn back and walk with him no more. Gethsemane is located in a valley. It always will be. For the crucial decisions which life places upon our shoulders are never decided on a Mount of Olives. The crucial, real, life-directing decisions come when we are in the valley. And this is as it should be. For the person who believes in God in the darkness of the valley is the only person who believes in God at all.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
The Lord looks down from heaven on all mankind to see if there are any who understand, any who seek God. Psalm 14, verse 2.
American Family Radio.
This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. That's the name of this radio show. Today's issues. Tim, Wesley, Chris, and Ray. And we thank you for listening to AFR. Of course, we've been talking the first half hour about the situation with Iran and Israel and President Trump's comments earlier this morning. And ceasefire is supposedly and hopefully in effect between Israel and Iran. And then, two, I think a lot of people want to see something from Iran in the next few days confirming, I would say in the next 24 or 48 hours, confirming. All I've read them say is if Israel stops, we'll stop. That's all I've read them say.
Sure.
I think in the coming days and weeks, we're going to need to see a full, complete surrender from them in the sense that they're going to acknowledge Israel as a sovereign state and renounce their call for the destruction of Israel and America. There's going to have to be some kind of, Ray, don't you think? Some kind of peaceful words coming out of Tehran?
Well, number one, it's going to be really hard to get the mullahs to agree with what you just said. Average, I think a lot of the people in Iran, probably most of them, I'm talking about the people on the street, so to speak, the average Iranian, they want peace. They don't want any more bombs falling from the sky.
Right.
It's going to be hard for the radical clerics who are in positions of power to do what you just said. You're asking them, I mean, I agree with you. I hope they say that.
Right.
But you're asking them to say, forget all the rhetoric of the last 40 years. We now recognize Israel's right to exist. If they were to say that, we would be on the verge of a major change in the Middle East. One can hope it will happen.
Well, let me ask you this one other question about that. If you're in Israel's position and you're told to stop bombing,
sure,
stop taking out targets, by President Trump, you're told, stop. Okay. Anyway, do you say? I guess they just have to do what President Trump tells them to do in that sense, because I guess I'm thinking about to Israel would be thinking we need to finish the job.
Sure.
Whatever that looks like exactly. And you're telling us hold up without any guarantee from Iran that they're going to change their views. Or does that even matter? Go ahead.
Well, quickly, Trump does have some leverage now that we've taken out the nuclear sites.
Leverage with
Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, saying, we took a big portion
that's true.
of the plan.
And they know that.
And they know that.
Israel knows that.
So I think it would be more, yeah.
But Israel did a lot of the dirty work.
Oh, absolutely.
They were going to defend themselves.
I really think it's pretty simple. If Iran does not attack again, if they don't launch any more missiles, I don't think Israel is going to launch anything.
Okay.
But I think if Iran does, it doesn't matter what President Trump says. Israel is going to strike back.
Well, yeah. All right, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Well, joining us now is Dr. Walter Wendler, president of West Texas A&M University, located in West Texas. And he joins us now. We have Dr. Wendler on every couple, 3 months to talk about various sundry issues, a lot of them having to do with education, higher education. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Tim. How are you?
Doing well, Dr. Wendler. What's the weather like there? And is it you're in Amarillo, right?
Right, Amarillo.
Yeah. What's the weather like?
It's actually a pretty nice day. It's a little overcast, but we had some rain yesterday, which in this part of the world is almost always welcome. So I'd say the weather is good. For West Texas, it's good.
The reason I ask is it gets dry there a lot of times. Y'all have had the experience the wildfires the last, couple of years, right?
Yes, we've had a couple of years with bad wildfires, and they're absolutely treacherous in every way. They don't get as much, you don't see them as much on national news as you did, say, the Palisades wildfires in California, because it's very sparsely populated, but there are people that have lost complete herds of cattle and so on and so forth, and every possession that they own went up in smoke. So it's treacherous. It's very it's serious business.
Okay, I have an article in front of me that you wrote called "Public Cynicism Regarding Higher Education is Up," and give us an overview of this topic, because a lot of people wonder, is college worth paying for? Go ahead.
That's a good question, Tim. And in fact, a lot of people are asking that question. There's so much borrowing that goes on for a college education. And unfortunately, about 40% of the students who take out loans never finish their degree. That's according to University Business. And that's disturbing. It would be like taking out a loan to buy a car and you never get the car.
Right.
And I know on universities, a lot of times faculty don't want to think about the degrees as a commodity. But Tim, in my mind, if here the total cost, room, board, books, everything, without any assistance, where you pay the full freight, is about $20,000 a year. Well, if you slide $20,000 across the table, you expect something in return for that. And if all you're left with is an empty promise and a bunch of debt, you're not going to be very pleased with it. And unfortunately, that's one of the things that drives up public cynicism, in my mind. I'm a baby boomer, so I'm no spring chicken. But the fact of the matter is, when I went to college, I could get a summer job and work a little bit during the school year and pay the total cost of college. You can't do that now. You'd have to be a heart surgeon to do that at most schools.
And you got to have a degree to do heart surgery. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
And hopefully it would be a good degree, because a lot of times that's another thing that drives cynicism. People are paying for the degrees, and then they get out and they find out that the degree has not prepared them for vocational work of any kind. And
that's a very good point. Parents, I know, who are most of the time the ones paying for the college education, you do take a look at what your son and daughter picked to study, and you go, can you get a job in that field? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I know, a lot of parents go, I don't think majoring in art culture,
especially based on where you live,
unless you're going to teach art.
Yeah, sure.
It's based on where you live.
Even finance, not so much, but definitely heart surgery. So I'd be curious to him, what would be his call, or what would be his pull for
when to go to VOTEC school, or when to go to a vocational school, and when to go to a university or college.
And I would like his perspective, because he is right. He is a president of a university that offers more than just those 4 or 5. So,
well, Ray, what about that? While we're waiting to get Dr. Wendler on, a lot of people are now considering, and I think wisely, hey, there's no point in going to 4 or 5 or 6 years of college when I can go to a school to learn how to be a electrician,
a mechanic,
or a plumber, or whatever.
Well, today you may go to a school and drop $150,000, or if you count all the expenses, even $200,000, and come out with a degree in medieval basket weaving, and there's not a big market for that today.
Right.
It's hard to make money doing that. Then you got to start at the bottom of some field that your college degree did not prepare you for. Then you got to ask yourself, what did I get for my $150,000?
Right.
And the answer is not much.
One thing that I think some people fail to impress upon, like, young people today. A lot of young people today want to be an influencer. They want to be on YouTube or social media hawking something.
I do.
And they fail to realize that everybody expects a toilet to flush, a light to come on, or a roof over their head. There's nothing wrong with blue-collar work. So if you're not sure about what you want to do in the future, go to school for 6 months, learn a trade, and that'll put you in the market, making money, paying taxes. Nothing wrong with that.
Another one is a barber shop or a hair salon. You don't have to go to 4 years and spend, $150K to do a job like that.
Dr. Walter Wendler, from president of West Texas A&M University, joins us now. You could go to study how to keep the internet working. That could be a major there.
That would be.
Huh?
There could be.
They're called IT people, and all of them do well. They have jobs.
They do.
So where were we, Dr. Wendler? You were commenting.
Well,
yeah.
Well, we're talking about the utility. I'll call it the utility, the vocational utility of a degree. And there's an old Yiddish proverb that some people attribute to the Apostle Paul, although I've never seen it in his writings, that basically says, if you haven't taught your son a trade, you've taught him to be a thief. And I think in some ways that's what we're talking about here, of something that has purpose in the workplace and other people are willing to pay for. I mean, that is, in a sense, the capitalism of work. If you have a job and do it well, somebody in all likelihood will pay you for it. And if you don't, or if you don't have the skills to do something of value to the general public, that's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, some of the other things that I point out in this piece, Tim, that you started by prompting me with, I mean, it is important. Too many universities are increasingly seen as ideologically driven or biased, and they tend to lean away from what I would consider to be conventional, traditional thought processes and lead to another side of the political spectrum. And that builds distrust, especially for families that want to see children gain access to a good life, a good skill set that allows somebody to be a productive provider for their family. And it's unfortunate that they come out with these ideas that seem to be embedded in their studies at some universities.
Yeah.
We've seen the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say one other thing, and this is sort of related. You were talking about ideology, and we've heard all the reports over the college campuses, and it's long known that the majority of college campuses, the vast majority probably of college campuses and university campuses in our country have professors that are left-wingers, okay? And that doesn't really matter to me so much as if they're not going to force that ideology on their students, because almost all of them, I don't know why that is, but again, not all. There are some conservatives on campus, but on campuses, some people are just independents. They just teach their subject and they don't try to force feed their ideology. I remember when I was in college, this is back in the 80s, and it was at a state university, Mississippi State University, and I was taking like an anatomy and physiology. I don't know what I was doing in that class. So you talk about why am I in here?
That was me and botany.
I was looking around going, I don't know, am I the only one that doesn't understand what she's saying? Anyway, she was a professor, and it was the first time I ever heard a person talk about evolution. And she was basically talking about evolution, and I'm talking about Darwinian evolution and how that was fact. And I was thinking about, I want to ask her questions. Because she was sort of putting down those of us who came from Christian homes who believed in the Genesis account, right, of creation. And anyway, I'm just saying that was way back in the 80s. So I know I think being challenged in your faith is not always a bad thing. It can be a good thing. You need to be challenged in your faith. But I would say this: if you're a parent considering sending your child off to a secular university or a state university, or sometimes you can go to a college that has a Christian name in it, and they're still secular in their orientation oftentimes, but that student needs to be well grounded in their faith before they go take on challenges that they haven't had to necessarily contend with yet. Does that make sense, Dr. Wendler?
Makes tremendous sense.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Tim, my wife Mary and I talk about this frequently. That has to start at home.
Yes.
You can't expect and too many of us as Christians, we expect the church to do that for us, and the church will help us. But our fundamental responsibility as parents is to, I'm going to say, reproduce our beliefs in our children. It's right. To share them as clearly with kids and let them know the difference between right and wrong based on our view of the world through God's word. And not many public universities are going to talk, presidents will talk like that, but I do. And to your point, Tim, about, why is it that so many professors lean left? That's what you said, lefty.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, one of my findings in some research that I'm doing right now, over half of all of the presidents of the United States, that's 24, which is more than half by one, have graduated from 9 institutions. And those are Harvard, Yale, the College of William and Mary, Princeton, Stanford, Columbia, Georgetown, the U.S. Military Academy, and the U.S. Naval Academy, West Point and Annapolis, of course. Over half, 24, have graduated from those schools.
Wow.
And that's according to the Center of Effective Lawmaking. But here's what's amazing, and I think you'll appreciate this. This is a stunningly select set of college campuses. There are 3,931 universities in our nation. And here's the fact. 0.0002% of these institutions have produced over 50% of the presidents of the United States. So if you want to look at what the average president of the United States thinks, or that half of the presidents think, look at what happens at those institutions. And I'm not being critical. I mean, there's some good, very good institutions on that list, but they are a select set of institutions that guide the thinking of young people that end up as in leadership roles.
Yeah.
You know, of William F. Buckley, a Yale graduate, famously quipped in an Esquire magazine article published in 1961. He said, and I quote, "I'd rather be governed by the first 2,000 people in the telephone directory," he said, "than by Harvard University faculty." I didn't say that. I'm just quoting it.
I know.
And by the way, that it stood the test of time.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's important. But all of this, in my mind, is leading to cynicism in higher education, and in all, but especially in public higher education.
Yeah.
And I think good leaders can do something about that by pushing back on this kind of stuff, using common sense.
Yes, sir. Dr. Walter Wendler has been our guest, president of West Texas A&M University in Amarillo, and they his article is called "Public Cynicism Regarding Higher Education is Up." We have that posted. So if you go to our Today's Issues Facebook page, we posted this column by Dr. Wendler. A lot of good facts and information in it for your consideration. Dr. Wendler, thanks for being on with us. And every time you're on with us, I just wait for you to get fired the next day for being on, you know, somebody saying you shouldn't be on American Family Radio, and you've survived now a year, I think. So anyway.
Yeah, maybe it's making me stronger.
Yeah.
Maybe it's making me strong.
Amen. All right. Thank you, Dr. Wendler. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Good.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that's Dr. Walter Wendler. I think he grew up in New York, he said. And you can still tell.
Yeah, the accent.
He's got the leftover New Yorker accent, but he's...
Look, I don't know where he comes from, Tim. We could use about 1,000 more presidents like him.
Amen.
Outspoken. He's a Christian.
Amen.
He believes the Bible, and he's leading a major public university.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah, man.
And all that's taking place across the sea, the ocean, there's been a really good news that took place yesterday, and that was a Supreme Court ruling.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about the Supreme Court ruling. Major victory for President Trump.
Yes. Divided Supreme Court on Monday allowed the Trump administration to restart swift removals of migrants to countries other than their homelands, lifting for now a court order requiring they get a chance to challenge the deportations. The High Court majority did not detail its reasoning for the brief order.
What was the score of the High Court? Does it say? Was it 5-4, 6-3,
6-3, because Justice Sonia Sotomayor, joined by 2 other liberal justices, issued a scathing dissent, the AP says. So it was 6-3.
All right.
Scathing.
So what you got here is the Supreme Court decision, and the Trump administration was waiting to see what they would say, but they've said that if you are here in the United States illegally and you are arrested by ICE and you are deported, you can be deported to a country other than the one of your origin. Is that what they said?
Correct. So you could be going to El Salvador, even if you might be from, Chad or something.
That's a scary thought.
Immigrated here illegally.
That's a scary thought. If you're in that position. To be. I think that'll. Listen, what President Trump's policies, Ray, have shut down the border.
Mm-hmm.
It's the safest it's been in
just shut it down.
Shut it down, right. The bad guys know they're not going to be able to get through now.
Right. Exactly. It's just shut it down. And so that was, you talking about promises made, promises kept. That is one big one that President Trump ran on, closing down the border. But which leads us to this story. That is, I was looking at a story last night with, and it had the number of Iranians that came in when Biden opened up our borders and said to the world, "Y'all come,"
Yeah.
and they did.
Right.
Like 15 million people that he allowed to flood into our country with free passes. And I know we've talked about this ad nauseum, and that did hurt the Democrats in the election because people. The majority of Americans were fed up with watching what was going on with the border.
Yeah.
But now, what do you? How many Iranians that we know of came into our country during Biden's administration?
Yeah, this is coming from a news outlet called the Center Square, which does straight news. More than 1,500 citizens of Islamic Republic were stopped by U.S. immigration officials as they attempted to cross illegally from 2021 to 2024. Of the 1,504 who were apprehended by immigration officials, 729 were allowed to stay in America by Biden-Harris administration.
Yeah. So, they talk
that's why I don't.
And those are just the ones we know.
Talk about possible sleeper cells. That's the reason I bring this up. But we keep hearing about possible sleeper cells in the U.S. Sponsored by Iran or Iran, whichever one you want to call it. And if you say, well, how would they get here? Well, they would have gotten here during Biden's administration when he opened up the floodgate.
Yeah.
To the southern border.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know we mentioned this a lot, but I personally don't get nauseated talking about it just because I know the potential long-term, not potential at this point, the long-term effect that it's going to have on our country and
what
the open of the border during the Biden administration. And I think is every opportunity we can get to point back to this was a purposeful and intentional plan on the Democrat side, and they supported it.
Right.
That we need to take every opportunity we get.
Yeah.
So thank goodness for the Supreme Court ruling in the correct direction, allowing President Trump to continue his plan of deportation.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
As a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign. By designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037, you help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump says the ceasefire between Israel and Iran is in effect after the deal initially faltered. The president earlier accusing both Israel and Iran of violating their ceasefire agreement just hours after he brokered a deal between them last night. Mike Tobin has the latest from Beersheba, Israel.
The IDF says it was actually 2 missiles that violated the ceasefire, came into the north of Israel about 4 hours after the ceasefire was supposed to take effect, and Israel has responded to it by striking in Iran, hitting what they said was a radar array. Following that, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had a conversation with President Trump, and Israel is not firing into Iran any longer. All of that following a flurry, waves of missiles that flew from Iran into Israel this morning. morning, one of them impacting in the southern Israeli town of Beersheba, resulting in a great deal of destruction. There was a family of 4 that was inside the bomb room in that apartment building. They took a direct hit and did not survive.
House Speaker Mike Johnson and other congressional Republicans holding their weekly press briefing today, where they discussed the U.S. strikes against the 3 Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend. House Republican Conference Chair and Michigan Congresswoman Lisa McClain praising President Trump for delivering peace through strength.
Iran will never be allowed to attain a nuclear weapon. And if Iran continues to try to go down this path, prepare to face the full fury and wrath of American firepower.
The House Financial Services Committee holding a hearing today to discuss the current state of the U.S. economy. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell testifying before the committee, defending his recent decision to keep interest rates steady.
Despite elevated uncertainty, the economy is in position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer-run objective.
The DOJ takes on Washington State's attempt to mandate the reporting of sexual abuse that's revealed during Catholic confession. Therese Crowley with more.
It's called a confessional seal. What's said in the Catholic sacrament of penance is sacrosanct between the person and God, with the priest standing in for Christ offering God's forgiveness. Now the Department of Justice is suing Washington State over a new mandatory reporting law requiring a priest to break the seal and report any confession of abuse to the state. Governor Bob Ferguson signed the law requiring a priest to choose between state criminal charges or being excommunicated by the church for breaking the seal. The Trump Justice Department argues this violates the free exercise of religion for all Catholics, and DOJ will not sit idly by when states attack the free exercise of religion.
The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals has blocked Louisiana's proposed 10 Commandments mandate. Bronson Woodruff has reaction.
This would-be law would have affected every public school and state-funded university in Louisiana. Matt Krause is of counsel with the First Liberty Institute. He explained to AFN what it would do.
Would have every public school in Louisiana put up a copy of the 10 Commandments in their classrooms. And so that's what HB 71 did. That's what was found unconstitutional by this panel.
This was not the ruling his team was hoping for. However, his team did expect it.
It's disappointing, but hardly surprising.
He said once Louisiana got this panel at the Fifth Circuit, they knew there was a good chance the court might lean this way. Nevertheless, he said this is not the end of HB 71.
However, we are confident that once the case goes before the full Fifth Circuit, which the Attorney General of Louisiana has already stated she's going to pursue, that the law will be upheld. So this is a temporary roadblock. Again, disappointing, but hardly surprising. This is by no means the last word on this topic, and we look forward to having HB 71 vindicated in a future hearing by the court.
I'm Bronson Woodruff.
And finally, the first potential hurricane of the season has formed in the Atlantic.
Tropical storm Andrea has formed out in the open Atlantic Ocean, some 1,200 miles west of the Azores. Andrea is not expected to impact any landmass, and there are no watches or warnings posted anywhere, though cyclones at sea do pose risks for international shipping. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
For American Family News, I'm Musty Pugh.
I'll do some stand-up comedy. Abe will do some preaching. Tim will MC the whole thing, and I'm really excited about it. The Weekend with AFA is a chance for our supporters to get better acquainted with the people and ministry you're supporting.
It's a Weekend with AFA, Thursday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 4th in Tupelo, Mississippi. Speakers will include Abraham Hamilton III, Jenna Ellis, Tim Barton, Tim Wildmon, and more. Register at afa.net/weekend.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. We got 25 more minutes of this show left here on this Tuesday, June the 24th, 2025. I'm Tim Wildmon with Wesley Wildmon and Dr. Ray Pritchard. And joining us now in the studio is Steve Paisley Jordahl.
Good
morning, Brother
morning,
Steve.
Everybody.
How you doing, brother?
I'm well. Heather and I are getting ready to go on a cruise. We're going on an Alaskan cruise.
Alaskan cruise?
Yeah, in August. So we're getting the right kind of clothes and starting to look at what you do in Ketchikan, Alaska, that kind of stuff.
Right? What about this?
Oh, listen, I've been on 2 of those.
Yeah?
Those prepare to be amazed.
Yeah, we're going to go to Glacier Bay and all that kind of stuff, but I've only been on the Caribbean things with a lot of sun and like snorkeling and everything. I'm not sure what to expect with
Bring
Alaska.
your jacket. It does get chilly.
No, you can snorkel.
You can. I can.
There's a lot they have these these excursions, snorkel with the polar bears.
That's right.
They advertise them different ways.
They do.
But, it's not for everybody. But
that's right. Not everybody can handle it.
I actually, when I back years ago, when I was in the Bay Area working with Silicon Valley, I went and got scuba certified in the Monterey Bay. That is some very, very cold water. Very cold water.
You have a what do you call it? A suit on?
Oh yeah,
a bodysuit.
For sure you did.
Otherwise you can't.
That would be.
The Pacific Ocean is very cold everywhere, right?
Pretty much.
From San Diego up to.
It gets a little. The more further north you go, the more it seems to be cold.
Yeah.
So Alaska, that's.
Yeah. But going to Alaska, so where are you leaving out of?
We're leaving out of Seattle.
All right.
It's 7 days, and we're going to stop in.
The whole trip's there and back 7 days?
Yes.
Okay. How long does it take you to get from Seattle to where Ray knows this? He's been up there, done that. What did you go out of Seattle too, or Vancouver?
Well, I've done it both ways. I did one where we started up in I want to say Anchorage, and then came south.
Wow.
Right?
Oh, okay.
And then done another one exactly the way you've done it. It's just. So are you going with a group, or just you and Heather? And
just Heather and I.
Oh, that's nice.
So you going to? Are you saying you're going up there and then flying back from Alaska?
No,
or
we're flying into
the boat
Seattle
the whole time.
Yeah, we're flying into Seattle.
Okay.
Going on the boat up north to the wherever you go in Alaska, and then coming back down. I think we'll be in Victoria, BC.
I'm just surprised. I'm kind of surprised they do that in 7 days. I guess I'm saying, but maybe.
There's 2. I think there's 2 whole days where you do nothing but at sea. That'd be probably between.
Yeah.
On the way up there.
And Steve, remember that on a cruise ship, remember these three words: calories don't count.
That's right.
They do not count on a cruise ship. On the land, they count.
Yes.
On the ship, they don't.
I will remember that. It's interesting because I've been on a couple of these cruise lines that have all this food. We were suggested, and we're going to take advantage of going on Cunard cruise lines, and it's supposed to be a little more oriented for adults. There's not going to be a lot of teenagers screaming kids on the cruise. A little more relaxed.
They're the people who did the real big time transatlantic, passages back in the day, right?
The Titanic white freight line merged with Cunard. So technically, I'm
with the Titanic.
I'm on the Titanic cruise line.
So that's in August.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well,
we'll bring a report back.
We look forward to hearing about it. Absolutely. I've never done that myself.
Yeah, maybe after I'll bring some fur back if I club some baby seals, that kind of stuff.
What do you got in the news there?
All right. Hey, the more we learn about the Mossad, which is Israel's intelligence agency, the more we just shake our heads and wonder. So the Mossad was behind the what do they call it, the Grim Beeper attack of Hezbollah in Lebanon.
The pagers went off.
The pagers went off and exploded. They were behind all kinds of subterfuge through this whole thing. Well, what we're finding out now is, according to audio received by the Washington Post, just hours after Israel launched its first wave of attacks, this is on June 13th, back well before we got it, the president sent our planes. But Israel called 20 of the top generals in Iran.
On their cell phones?
On their cell phones with a warning. And I want you to hear now. What you're going to hear is the actual call. It's all in Persian, so you won't be able to understand it. But I have voiced over the translation. I went last night and learned Persian real quick so I could do this. But no, the translation was available, and you're going to hear my voice over the Persian call. But imagine you're a general in the army, and you hear this. Cut 11.
Hello, Sardar. Sardar.
The only advice I'm giving you right now, I can advise you now, you have 12 hours to escape with your wife and child. Otherwise, you're on our list right now. You, all of you, one by one on the list that I'm looking at, and you're one of our next targets. We will hit you, your family, your children, everyone with the dirt. I only call to tell you, look, as long as there's time, I'll give you a reprieve. Like I said, 12 hours from this very minute that I spoke to you, you have time to escape. We're closer to you than your own neck vein. Put this in your head.
Yikes.
Whoa. Closer than your own neck vein.
And then they went on to demand from these people a video formally dissociating themselves from the Ayatollah and saying that they're out.
Well, what happened?
Well, I don't know.
When was this?
This would have been hours after Israel first started started sending planes.
But the audio is just being released.
Yeah, it was just leaked to the Washington Post.
Gotcha.
Mossad is kind of like our CIA, except probably better at their jobs, because Israel's very survival depends on them, Mossad, and so that was psychological warfare too, right there. In addition to a real warning, because I know Israel has taken out and killed a lot of the nuclear scientists that were working with Iran. Their top military people, generals, have been targeted, and in fact, one of the stories was that Mossad was able to get so deep inside Iranian leadership that they were able to fool a few of the top generals or either top commanders to be in one room together, and then
Oh, wow. They watched them and saw the telltale signs of what would draw them into a meeting, and they said somehow they knew how to keep them there, and then they wiped them out with a bomb.
Yeah, this is ruthless stuff. This is not that. Even listening to that makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Even though you're knowing what you're listening to, but the Mossad and Israel, they can't afford to mess around, play around. They can't afford to.
They really can't afford to
be wrong about things
or negotiate. Really, I mean, it's just
no, because the survival of their country and their people are at stake. So, what do you think about that, Ray?
Can you imagine the war is going on and your phone rings, right? And you're thinking, okay, it's my commander.
Right.
I got something else I got. Or, my wife calls, is everything okay? And you hear that ominous voice saying, you are on the list. And we are closer to you than your neck vein. Which would make that, I think that would make the hair on the back of my neck stand up right there.
And by the way, we're taking not only you, we're your wife and kids out too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's psychological warfare as much as it is anything right there. All right, next story.
All right. Well, this will make you a little uncomfortable for a different reason. I want to get Ray's thought on this. The Evangelical Lutheran Church in America has become anything other than evangelical, everything other than evangelical. And one of their women pastors or pastresses, they don't call them that.
Pastresses?
That's what I'm calling her.
I thought that was like what you get for dessert at Olive Garden, right?
It may
there.
be.
Huh?
It may be. Anyway, one of their
pastors.
I
have a raspberry pastresses. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's true. I wanted to hear. She was explaining the Great Commission, and Ray, I'd love to get your take on this. Cut 13.
You are supposed to be my witnesses. You are supposed to make disciples. You are supposed to tell everybody to change their mind and way of life. It's a new translation of repent. We, who are in kind of progressive church circles, don't tend to be real excited about the idea of running out and telling other people to change because of Jesus. Other people are beloved by God and have God in them and in their lives and speaking to them too, and we discover together what God means. I think that there are people who are perfectly happy in other faiths who do not need converted to ours. I think there are people who are perfectly happy with no faith at all, and I don't think we're doing them any favors if they don't believe in God. I don't think we're doing them any favors by jumping on top of them and telling them they're wrong.
Yeah, don't tell them they're wrong.
Well, I agree. We shouldn't be jumping on top of people, right? that form of evangelism is gone, past tense, right? But look, what are we going to say about this? Number one, this lady, this pastoress, whatever you called her, she is perfectly typical of what you hear in mainline denominations. We shouldn't think that's not an extreme example, Steve. That's what you will hear in mainline denominations. Number two, that bears no resemblance to the Great Commission that the Lord Jesus gave in Mark 16, Luke 24, and especially in Matthew chapter 28. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. That's not just unbelief. That is rank heresy. That is, and I use this phrase, people throw it around, and I use this phrase advisedly. What she is saying is a lie from the pit of hell. It is satanic in its root, in its origin, and it is satanic in its effect, and those who follow that kind of teaching will end up where this woman will end up unless she truly repents and comes to Jesus. You're going to end up in hell. This is the blind leading the blind. You're guaranteed to fall into the ditch.
Well, I'm wondering what kind of faith that is. What kind of religion is that you don't care if anybody else believes it?
Certainly not Christianity, because if you believe, or we believe, whoever believes the Bible and knows that there's a heaven and there's a hell, then obviously if you knew that someone who was going to hell, and you knew that, or at least their lifestyle and everything else says that, then you would want to convert them, obviously. But that's a serious question. I got a funny thought, though. As I was listening to her, all I could do is picture her in a room in like a kumbaya and just sharing things that come to her mind that while she's holding a Bible that she doesn't even believe in. It's like I've always wondered why. Obviously, what Ray Pritchard said is the answer, but I wonder why people like herself has to go to so much stress and anxiousness to not use the very book that she's holding. Just create your own. What's her name?
I don't.
Let's go with Susie. Okay, why doesn't Susie just say, "Here's the religion according to Susie"?
Right.
And just go with it.
She has pronouns.
Just go with it. It just
they, them.
That would be more honest.
Yeah, be more honest. It's completely.
All right. Yeah, you want to know why the mainline Protestant denominations are dying?
Yes.
It's because of that garbage that she just espoused right there. If you don't believe in anything, there's no point in
trying to convince somebody else to.
Yeah, then nobody's going to come to your church.
Yes.
Eventually,
yes.
Nobody's going to come to your church because if you don't believe in the teachings of she's saying all roads lead to God.
That's what she said.
That's what she's saying. So why do I want to go to your church when I can go to the God of the golf course?
Yes, she said.
Or I can go to the golf of the woods. Go ahead.
She said that the very if someone doesn't believe in God and you know they don't believe in God, the worst thing you can do is tell them about God. Yeah, that's the crazy.
That's just. Right. I don't know what happened, but so many of these mainline, which that is one. What is that called? The
ECLA, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.
I guess I know you got other stories, but just Ray for a couple more minutes. What time in history did the seminaries begin? Because this has to come from a lot of the cases come from a seminary teaching.
Well,
so when did they start going?
I think we can look back about 150 years ago to the late 1800s.
Okay.
With the influence of German higher criticism, the influence of many new, quote, liberal ideas, as these seminaries, which had been for generations, Wesley, had been basically, maybe not profoundly, but basically evangelical, began to move further and further away. And as for this lady, she calls herself a Lutheran. Somebody get Martin Luther on the phone.
Sure.
Let's get Dr. Luther on the phone and ask him what he thinks about what's being said in his name.
As long as they're not preaching out of Hebrews.
Well, Luther would have nothing to do with what this woman said. It's an abomination. It's a travesty, and it will lead people. That kind of preaching, not only, as Tim said, empties the churches, but it leads people to eternal destruction.
Yep, absolutely.
You're listening to today. Absolutely, you're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Steve, any more to say, or any new update in the last hour about
on the ceasefire?
Yeah,
tentatively seems to be holding, is the last I have seen. It's tenuous, but you would expect that for people who have been on each other's throat for so long. And then there's the Al Green, is that the congressman? His promise he will be introducing articles of impeachment today. I think he does that every day that the Senate is in, or the House is in session. But he's going to do it again today.
Who's going to do that?
Senator or Congressman Green? I think it's maybe Al.
Where's he from?
Let me look it up.
Al Green.
Wasn't there a singer?
Yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking of.
Probably not the same guy.
Al Green, representative from Texas.
Yep.
The other Al Green, Reverend Al Green from Memphis.
Yeah,
I think he was a soul singer, right?
Yes.
R&B.
Yeah, and great.
Very well.
Yep. So he's going to be seeking to impeach Donald Trump over the airstrikes.
It's not going anywhere.
No. So tentatively holding as far as we know. Although, we're hoping that this pans out. Did you know that I can't remember, Brazil maybe has nominated Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That tells you the culture shifting.
Well,
Brazil.
Yeah.
Is that where the fellow has the Elvis hair? Is the president? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I do not. He's
got the sideburns and everything.
Yeah, Bolsonaro.
For real.
Is it a Bolsonaro? No.
Or is that Argentina?
It was Pakistan.
Okay, I heard about that.
Pakistan has nominated Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize because he brought a truce between them and India.
Yeah, and that was a dangerous situation. Yeah.
Well,
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
What a world.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there it is.
Every day. What a world.
Yeah.
What else you got, Steve? We got 7 minutes left.
All right. You ever get a email that says you have an unpaid parking ticket or an unpaid toll that you have to pay?
I'd say raise your hand if you haven't got one of those.
Right.
Well, according to a survey, 96% of Americans receive at least one scam message via email. So CNET was doing the survey.
You mean a day or a week, or did they say?
Each week. One a week. 96% get one a week. 37% receive more than 10 each week. So I don't know what makes you, like, if you click on one. And here's the thing. You think they haven't got you if you go and click and you just don't give money. As soon as you click, they've got you. They know you're alive. They know they're sending more stuff your way. Plus,
all right, there's ways this is happening, and I don't know what somebody's going to have to do something to help stop this because it's wearing people out. Between phone calls,
text
messaging, and emails. I call them spammers and scammers.
And thieves.
It's just relentless with people now, huh?
And thieves. They're a thief.
Oh yeah, but they get you on the phone, and they take advantage of elderly people a lot of times too. You heard that, so what do you, Ray? I know you talked about this. And you said they must have your picture.
Look, we go up to Chicago. We drive to Chicago, and there's toll roads all over the Chicago area, and we come back, and the next week. I get them all the time, a text message saying, so-and-so, you were on the Illinois toll road. Well, it's true. We were on some of their toll roads. Click on this link and pay the money, or else you will be in some kind of big trouble. I can understand how that would – look, it kind of unsettles me.
Right.
And I know what's going on.
Right.
They, whoever they are, they know that Marlene and I were in Chicago. They know we were on the toll roads. Tim, how do that? Whoever they are, how do they know that? Because it's a scam. And if you click on the link, I mean, as Steve said, they've got you. They knew we were there. They knew we were on the toll roads. I can easily understand why. And you said senior adults. Look, that's me. I can understand why people would get scared and give them your credit card. And boy, then you're in trouble when you've done that.
There's another one going around, the DMV.
That's right. That's the one I get
in the various
once
states.
a month, once every
saying
3
you got
weeks.
you got an outstanding speeding ticket or something.
Well, the one I get most often is a toll. So they say, hey, you got a toll.
Like Ray's talking about.
The phone calls, what they'll do if you answer the phone calls, they'll sample your voice, and then they have your voice. They can use AI to make it say whatever they want it to say.
That's showing up in some of the more recent movies and or TV series where they're using it's AI voice. They copy if you take the call and you start talking, then they keep your voice and they copy it and they reuse it.
Also, the fake invoices for businesses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's another email tactic that they try to use. So, I don't know. It's just, I know a lot of people get it a lot worse than I do. They're just wearing people out.
This is something you do need to be somewhat paranoid about.
Yes.
This is something to be paranoid about.
Especially the phishing emails and so
right.
forth, too, where they want to, the scammers want to get you to click on a link.
Yep, and then they have access to everything in your phone or in your computer or in your tablet.
I think the old when in doubt, don't, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Don't.
You don't know who it is, don't.
Well, even if you think you do, you better triple check it. I would say
that's
call.
Right. And
go ahead.
Have a friend, somebody who you can trust who knows this, and say, does this look legit?
Yes.
Right.
We need to, you know what, now that we're having this conversation, we would do our audience a great service to have one or two of our IT guys on, like Nick or Nate, because he has a particular website that's free that he used. When I get one that I'm questioned about and I don't know, I can send it to him, and he has a way of being able to see if it's fraudulent or not. Anyways, that's a
good point.
We could have there's 3 or 4 steps you can do that he would be able to help us out with. I know that in the last 2 years I've become so educated on this based on the training that AFA's IT team does for us as a staff that it's helped me out tremendously, and I can almost spot it as quick as anybody now because of their help.
You can listen to AFA, or you can hire your own IT professional.
That's right, yeah.
Well, the AI is changing the way spammers and scammers work because it's no longer just the Nigerian prince.
That's right. Hey, in light of our conversation about the Lutheran so-called female pastor, we have an article that we posted on our Today's Issues page called The Gospel. It's got Pastor Bert Harper, who is a co-host of Exploring the Word. In 3.5 minutes, he walks us through the road of salvation. We encourage you to go to our Facebook page, our Today's Issues Facebook page, and share that video with your friends far and wide, as he does. Brother Bert Harper does a wonderful job sharing the gospel.
Awesome. By the way, spammers and scammers would be a great name for like a heavy metal band. I think something like that.
I don't know. Obviously, the problem with that is it's funny for us, but nobody would go.
Yeah,
they wouldn't want to be.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, the spammers and the scammers. All right, we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.